What up, everybody? Welcome to Living Like a G with your girl G. I'm super pumped today because I have my manager, really good friend. Uh, I don't know. There's so many different lists of things that I could
Great.
say for you, right? Alex Forhan,
What's going
yay!
on?
I'm so excited to have you on here because most of the time when I have people on here, they they can expose me, but they won't. But I know you will expose me. That's the difference.
I have no shame.
No shame at all. Like literally, Alex and I have lived so much life together. And I know you guys have heard me say that about a lot of my friends, but Alex has been in the trenches with me in my career basically almost since the beginning. I mean,
Yeah.
literally, it was like 2 years in, and then Alex and I kind of started working together. So we have been at this a really, really long time. And Alex has seen all sides of me for sure. So that leads into, which is how I always like to start my podcast, is with first impressions of each other. And why don't you go first so I can think of your redemption 2.0 story?
My arc.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
so Gina and I met, I'm sure she's talked about this on here, but we both did a program called CMC. Um, and it's a program in Nashville. It's like a semester long program. So Gina, was coming from school in Tulsa. I was coming from school in LA, which is funny because I'd been in LA for like a month basically before I went to Nashville. And when we all went to CMC, everyone's like, "Where are you from?" And I was like, "LA."
Oh wow, you were
And
that
then,
person?
like anytime a question would come up about LA, I was like, I don't really know.
You're like, I'm from LA, but I know absolutely
Right.
nothing.
Yeah, I've been there for just a little short time, but I'm not gonna say Ferndale. But you're from
All right,
Ferndale. Everyone be like, "All right,
Fern
get
what?
this, get this kid out of here. Who is this?" um, but first impression with Gina, honestly, was definitely talent because we had our very first like kind of opening night show. And Gina did Queen of Hearts, which if you
Oh,
haven't heard it, that's a real throwback.
oh my
Um,
gosh, yeah. If you are only a true fan if you
right.
remember Queen of Hearts. That
Yep.
was like my OG.
Yep.
That was my
That
hit
was the
off the
go-to.
EP.
It
That
was.
was the hit off the
It
EP
was.
for sure. People
That was
loved that
your
song.
that was your go-to. Um,
Oh man, that's so funny.
but a little intimidated by Gina, not gonna lie. First
Oh.
impression. Again, coming from Ferndale. So I was like, well, she's got a lot more personality than me. I'm just over here in my sweatpants with my buzz cut.
Your flannel. You used to wear
My
flannels all the
flannel. I'm
time.
all about the flannel.
that
Um,
that that country came out. That
you know,
country came
it
out with
did.
that
Yeah.
flannel.
Yep. My socks with sandals sometimes will come out maybe.
Oh man, you were a shoebie?
Sometimes.
Oh
Look at
man.
there's no rules in Ferndale. You can do your
Oh
so.
gosh. All of the
um,
90s is frowning
right.
on you right now.
um, but yeah, like Gina mentioned, we've now been working together for like 5 years, 6 years almost this fall,
Yeah. Wow.
which is crazy, and really have kind of been through it with with booking, new music, everything that we've kind of
Mhm.
done together, and so yeah, super excited to kind of jump on here today.
Yeah, it's so my first impression of Alex, so this is funny. Yeah, Alex is like, don't look at me.
This is a different Alex. He's
Yeah,
mixing up
so
some people.
I will if you've seen any of my podcasts or any of my videos with Alex, you probably already heard the original story. So I'm gonna give the meeting Alex 2.0. Okay, this is the 2.0 story. I had my first impression with Alex. I was like, eh. Honestly, my very first impression of you was not eh. It was like, oh, this guy's just like a nice guy. But then, of course, that program kind of divvied us up. But anyways, but Alex 2.0, Alex hits me up and he's like, hey, I see the things that you're doing. They're really awesome. Would love to be a part of it. And this is like, we're already like, what, a year or so outside of
Yeah,
our program. And so I'm like, oh, okay. Like I had been working with different people to help me, but nobody really stuck with it. They were like, oh yeah, I'd love to help you with booking. And then I'd start showing them what I'm doing for booking. And they'd be like, I can't do this. This is too much. And they would just like bail out. So Alex comes along and I, still kind of had a bad taste in my mouth. So, but one of my friends, one of my all-time best friends, and again, if you've seen any videos with Tom, like he and I are joined at the hip. he was working with Alex at this place in Nashville called the Puffy Muffin. Okay, what a name. Okay, what a name for a place. But it was a really popular place in Nashville, a brunch and breakfast. They kind of did everything, but they were known for their breakfast. And
It's
so
casserole.
and their pastries. Their pastries
Yep.
are amazing. Oh my
Yep.
god. So if you're in Nashville, please go to the Puffy Muffin. And I'm not joshing you. That's a legit name. It's a
It,
legit restaurant.
when
Okay.
I was working there and some Ferndale people came out and they were like, "Oh, what are you doing?" I was like, "Well, I'm working at the Puffy Muffin." And I don't know if I can say this on your podcast, but they were like,
Go ahead.
is that a disease below the belt or above the belt?"
Exactly.
I was like,
For
"All
real.
right." Like,
It sounds like some alien disease that would be on
right.
Rick and Morty. Like that's what it sounds like.
They all bought
He's got
merch.
the
They had
Puffy
like
Muffin.
Puffy Muffin shirts. They went home with
They
like water bottles.
yeah, they had it all. It's so funny. So anyway, so Tom had been working with Alex at the Puffy Muffin, and he mentioned him in some conversation. And I don't even think I messaged you back, if I'm really being honest. I think you messaged me and I just didn't say anything. And Tom was like, mentioned some funny thing. I was like, oh, that's kind of funny. I was like, oh, you're working with Alex. And he goes, yeah. And like starts talking about him. And I was like, well, I still kind of have a bad taste in my mouth, blah, 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 blah. And he's like, no, you should really hear his side on it. Like basically vouched for him. Okay. And Tom is like one of those people, like he's my best friend. So if he's vouching for somebody, I'm like, okay, maybe I need to like take a second look at this, right? So I messaged Alex back and I'm like, "Hey, yeah, this is what I've been doing. This is what I'm working on. I'm going to be honest with you. Every time somebody tries to help me out with booking or anything, they get real overwhelmed and they can't stick with it. So what I'm going to do is I'll kind of like help you learn what I'm doing to get like my shows booked, but I'm going to continue booking my own shows cuz I don't want to stop the momentum." So, we end up
Right.
doing that. Alex ends up being the only person that has ever stuck with it. And now we're like 6 years later and he's still here. So there's your 2.0, the development of Alex. He blossomed into this great little egg. Started rough, but hey, when you start rough, there's only one way, right? And it's up.
Gotta go up.
Yeah.
So
So you
I went up.
better to under deliver and oversell at the
Right.
end, right?
Exactly. That was my plan all along, actually. So I
Right.
was
You were
like,
just
yeah,
thinking
yeah.
way ahead
I was
and
just
all
getting
these.
ready for that redemption arc.
Oh man, oh man, I still think about some of the memories from that and just think like, what in the world? Like, and that program was so great. Like, I honestly like learned a ton, but it's funny looking back now and seeing like we knew nothing and we were like so hopped up on uh like, oh, trying to make sure everybody gets their right percentage and like,
Right.
you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, and when you're in the beginning and when you're starting in the music industry, everybody does it. And you don't really believe that when somebody says, hey, look, it doesn't matter.
Right.
Like you're just like, no, it does matter. And
Right.
then you get like 5 years in and you're like, you're right. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like I think back to some times of like some conversations I had with some people and I'm like, why was I even having that conversation? Like, what? I'm so
Right.
stupid.
Natalie was
So
right all along.
oh yeah, for sure. That I mean, look, her wisdom has stood the test of time for
I
sure. I
know.
mean,
She's the best.
yeah, she's amazing. So, anyways, okay, so what I want to hear because I don't even think we've ever like talked about this, and this is one of the reasons why I like bringing friends on is because we've we've never even talked about well, we have talked about first impressions for you, but we've never talked about first impressions for me. So it's always interesting for me to hear that. But I also want to hear like what is your funny memory or like fave memory of us thinking back? I have a few. I have a lot that are some of my favorite memories. And like probably some of my favorite memories with just like friends in general. You know what I mean?
I have okay, so I have two that I'm gonna say.
Okay,
Um,
you do one and then I'll do one and we'll kind of
okay,
like volley back and forth.
all right. First one, so this is when we're at CMC.
Okay.
So part of the program is at the end of it, you go on tour. So you like book shows and you go out and you play at other colleges. Like
God, I don't even
people,
know where this is
like
going, but I have a
write
feeling
it.
I know where it's going.
You bring lighting, you bring everything. And so Geena was obviously like a performer in that, and then I was the tour manager. And so we go out this one show, and I, like we're getting set up and everything, and I went to go get some coffee, and Natalie calls me, and she's like, "Where's the first aid kit?" And I was like, "Oh, like I think it's still on the bus." And she was like, can you bring it here like right now? And I was like, well, but I'm in the line for coffee. Can I give it like
I'm
a
in the
couple of
line for
minutes?
coffee.
I was like,
Wow.
I need this. And she was like, no, Geena just fell down like 2 flights of stairs.
Okay,
And
hold on.
so,
Let me give background. Hold on. Let me step in and give some background. Okay. So, part of our program was we got studio time, but from the hours of midnight to 9 a.m., it was like they would pick random names. And if that person picked like your name, then you could go up there and snag the 12 a.m. to 3 a.m. and whatever, right? So I was a fiend. I was like, I'm gonna grab as much as I can, right? Well, the week leading up to our tour, nobody wanted to be in the studio. So I took everyone's studio time. I'm talking about like all nighters, okay? Straight up all nighters the whole time for an entire week. And I think I got in 5 days, I got 8 hours of sleep, maybe. It was probably less than that. And I was hopped up on caffeine pills. I was a mess. Okay. So then we get on tour and I'm like, yes, we'll perform that night. I'm going to sleep and it's going to be amazing. And I'll be right as rain. So what happens is I get put in a room with this girl that snores so bad, so bad. I asked her, I was like, hey, do you like snore or anything or like whatever? And I guess there was some rumor that I snored, which I do not. Okay, I do not snore under any circumstance. What had happened, and that's a whole other rabbit trail. I was in a room with a girl that snored, and then everybody thought it was me, but it was the other girl. So then everybody who had her in their room was like pissed because she was snoring too. So we finally ended up putting the snorers together. But I asked this girl, I'm like, hey, do you snore or anything? Because like, if so, like, I'm gonna try to go to bed before you, kind of thing. She's
right.
like, oh no. Like I'm a pretty like light sleeper or whatever. Light sleeper, my butt. This girl, it's like Hiroshima bombs dropping in her room. I'm like, what the heck? I'm like trying to wake her up. Like, I'm like, hey, like waking her up in the middle of the night. So I end up with no sleep again. And I am at the point of I'm basically about to have a panic attack. Okay. Because I am like needing so much sleep. And, like we're putting on the whole tour ourselves. So that means we're building it out. We're building the stage. We're doing all this stuff. So we get to this performance. And when you're tired, you're like mad clumsy. I go to walk down the stairs and you had to walk down like basically 2 flights of stairs. It was like 20 steps down and they were carpeted. And then that was our green room. I missed the first step. I literally trip on the top step, land on my shins, and I slide all the way down to the bottom of these 20 steps on my shins. Like, it was so unbelievably painful. I'm trying to keep it together. So I'm like tired. I'm like, it's basically it's come to the point, right? And I get into the green room and our directors are there and I go, "Hey, I just fell down the stairs." And then I'm like, and I'm in so much pain. And I just start bawling, bawling. And I'm literally, my shins are like swollen like 2 inches above my leg. It was so bad. So, anyways, Natalie ends up calling Alex and it's like, hey, where's the first aid kit? Because I'm bleeding. My shins are bleeding. Mind you, I haven't even done the performance. And I was the closer I was the finale of that performance. So now I'm like, can barely move my legs. And of course, in my performance, I have like a dance routine and I'm having to be dancing around all this bull crap. It was terrible. Okay, so now continue. You interrupted for
Oh,
coffee.
no, that was so. Then I bring the first aid kit, and like at the time, Geena and I still not like the closest. So
We didn't have beef. We just like we
no,
just
we
didn't
just
know
didn't like
each other.
really.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
just
we
didn't
just
know
like
each
didn't
other.
really talk much.
Yeah.
So I kind of just like left the first aid kit, and I was like, all right, well, I'm probably gonna go get coffee now.
I'm gonna go get coffee for the second time.
Good luck.
Oh man. That whole tour was just something
Uh,
else. Oh man, and I still like it took probably about 5 years for the scars to come off my
I
shins.
bet that was
Like
a
the
yeah.
scars were on my shins for like straight up like 3 or 4 years. And I still have a scar. I don't know why this happened to me at the CMC, but we were there during winter
Oh no.
and we had to from we didn't have to, but we would constantly walk from the apartments to the CMC building because it was literally like a block or two, and we would just all walk and whatever. We're like, get some exercise, walk up that hill, whatever. And so it was really cold one morning. I think it was like felt like 14. It was like there's
Yeah.
still some snow on the ground, whatever. So I walk into the building and you have to walk up a spiral staircase. So I'm walking up this staircase, but my legs are literally numb and frozen. Like I can't feel my legs because of course, like I'm from California. I'm not wearing winter wear. Like I'm wearing these like skinny jeans with like maybe a flannel. I don't even think I had a coat on. So I'm walking up these stairs and I can't feel my legs and I end up tripping up the stairs.
Wow.
And these stairs were metal, the
And they were
edges of them.
small.
Yeah, they were
Like,
really, and it's a spiral staircase, so sometimes
yeah,
that messes with your brain for some reason. So
yeah.
this is making me sound so clumsy. I swear to God, I'm not clumsy.
No, they're tough.
But yeah, like a bunch. It's like known for people to fall on these
Right.
stairs. These ones, not the other ones. But so I trip and I fall up the stairs, and the lip of those staircases were metal, and it dug straight into my knee and my shin, and I started like bleeding so much that I couldn't get it to stop. So I finally go to Natalie, and I didn't know this at the time. Like I was like, Natalie, I think I need to go get stitches. And she was like, whatever you're about to show me, don't show me because I will pass out. She like just does not like blood. So I was like, okay, well, I'm just gonna deal with this on my own then because
Right.
obviously I can't have her help me.
Good luck.
So I think I just put a band-aid on it and like tried to like butterfly it together. But I
Right.
still to this day have a big gash on my
I
shin
bet.
from those stairs as well,
Those
which
things are
is
gnarly. They really are.
man, those stairs were so like the stairs too were like they were cement and then the lip of it was metal. So
Well, and
like
they
you
were steep too.
yeah. Oh
Like,
yeah, they were really steep.
I was
Yeah.
all,
It's like
like, nervous going down them too.
yeah, it's like who made these?
Right.
Like,
Get an elevator.
these are not childproof.
Right. No.
Get an elevator. Yeah, because we so needed that. Us musicians
Yeah.
just
For
already sitting
our
on our
one
butts.
story.
Yeah. So funny. Okay, so one of my favorite memories of all time with us is I fly into Seattle. I was playing some shows in Seattle, so I was staying with Alex, and we decide it's like Saturday. We all go out, and it's like me and your roommate, and I think there was one more person. Oh, it was Maggie, which is Maggie. Her name's Maggie, but freaking Alex would call her Meggie.
Maggie.
We're like, who? Anyways, so we all go out. We're just like kicking it, whatever. They take me to this rooftop bar called M Bar. Super cool place. Again, if you haven't been there and you're in Seattle, if it's still around,
Yeah.
go check
It's
it out.
so great.
It's so freaking cool. And what's cool about Seattle is they have like the most cranes. I guess like they have the record for the most cranes like up in the air.
Weird
So
fact.
and yeah,
Not
and
where I thought
during
you were headed.
yeah. So during Christmas, they're all like decorated with lights or like, the Seahawks or like, a total like Seattle vibe. Super, super cool. So we're all like having a great time. We're like just like laughing and whatever. So we finally finished, right? So we've been at this like bar like all night, right? So we finally finished. We're gonna take an Uber back. And we're already like laughing and dying, just being complete idiots. Like not like being disrespectful, but we're just like, when you get friends together and you're just like, we're just so dumb together. So we're just laughing or whatever. And all of a sudden we're like, there's our Uber. So the three of us go and we get in this Uber and our one friend just gets in a random stranger's car. She thinks it's the other car.
You
And I'm
can't
telling
get
you,
in.
this person is just stopped at a stop sign. They're not even like another Uber. So they're not even like, hey, oh, they also had an Uber sign and she just confused it. No, straight up, this is a pedestrian, a civilian's car. And she gets in and she's just like, hey, da-da-da. And we're like, over here.
She can't get in, so she's knocking on the window. She's like, hey, let me in.
Yo, we're over here. Get
like no one had an issue getting to the Uber.
No, she was
Except
the only one. And I started laughing so hard, I think I fell on the ground. I literally was laughing so hard. I fell down to the curb. I was laughing so hard. I could not contain myself. It was one of the funniest things I've ever seen. Because, like when you go to open the car to an Uber, if it's locked, you're thinking, immediately you think,
right.
oh, maybe I'm at the wrong car. And so,
Right.
but not her. She was like, hey.
And the fact that she was the last one in line. So it's like she just followed everyone.
The other thing too, all you needed to do was follow us.
But that was the same night. Do you remember? She like we went in, we got burgers at Dick's, and then we were like walking away, and we turned around, and she just had this bike, and we were like, "Where did you get this? Like, you can't just take." She was like, "I'm just moving it." I was like, "No."
Like, looked like you were about to hop on.
You can't just bring that.
Oh man, that was like that trip too. That whole week, or I might have been there longer than a week. I think I might have been there 2 weeks. But that whole time that we were there, I mean, like when I finally played the show, because I played this New Year's show in Seattle that was super cool, and it had this the balcony had a view of the Space Needle, and then the Space Needle, they do all these fireworks around it. It's like the sickest thing ever. If you want a place to go to for New Year's, I know like everybody's like New York and all these things, but I'm telling you, like Seattle's like super cool.
Yeah.
So I play this show. It's really great. And mind you, we get done with the show and it's like midnight, maybe like 12:30. We Ubered there, and the Uber there wasn't that bad. But then we go to leave our Uber, and the Uber's like $100.
Yeah.
And we're like, absolutely not. We're not paying $100 when it only costs like a $20 Uber to get here. But it's like because it was because like it was New Year's and everybody's trying to get an Uber, right? So we're like, well, maybe we'll just wait it out. Okay, big mistake. we go to this like bar around the corner or whatever, and we're trying to wait it out. But mind you, I've got a speaker stand, my guitar, bags, like all these things from the show. And so we're like sitting in this bar, and these people are like, why does this person have all this crap? And we're trying to find an Uber or a Lyft, and we cannot seem to find one cheaper than like $80. So I'm like, yo, what if we call a taxi? And he was like, a taxi? Isn't a taxi more expensive? And I was like, I don't know. I don't think it's more expensive than what we're seeing right now. So anyways, we end up calling a taxi, and it only costs like $22.
Yeah.
And when the taxi's finally like outside the bar, we show up and everybody is trying to steal our taxi. Everybody's like, hey, I'll take the taxi. Yeah. And we're like, no, this is our taxi. Like, shout out, going old school, I guess. It was so funny. There's just so many funny memories from that night.
Yeah, that was
okay. So what's your second story?
Second story, okay, is again, Geena comes to Seattle. And
oh, I know which one you're about to say right now.
So I picked her up, like, I'm pretty sure you took the light rail in, and so I picked her up like kind of closer to my house from the airport. And so we go home, and like we're talking, we're like, oh yeah, like we're gonna go out tonight and go, like go sightsee or explore, do whatever. And Gina's like, all right, like I'm just gonna take a little nap. And so,
well, mind you, I had gotten no sleep leading up to that. We had booked the craziest tour of our lives, and I took a flight from I think from New York or something.
I think so, yeah.
To Seattle. So, and it was like the earliest flight ever because it was the cheapest. So I have like no sleep. So I'm like, dude, I have to take a nap before we go we go out tonight. Okay, so now go.
And so she falls asleep on the couch. And like at this point, like my roommates are gonna come out, like we're all kind of waiting for it.
Mind you, the couch is in the living room, the most like walked through area in his home.
And so it's like, I mean, Geena goes to sleep at like 6 o'clock. And so we're like, okay, she'll sleep like 6 hours.
No. I went to bed way earlier than that.
Oh yeah, because you went to bed when I was still at work.
You went to work and I ate something, and I went to bed at like 2 or 3.
Yep.
If that, it might have been earlier than that too.
So then I get home and like Gina's still sleeping. I'm like,
on the couch.
Whatever. I'm like, okay. So then it's, like I make dinner. It's like 7. My roommates are like, what are we gonna do? So then we start playing some games. Gina's still asleep. It's like
the dog comes up in my face. Moose ends up in my face at some point.
It's like 1 a.m. and my roommates are like, should you check on her? Like, is she good? Like Geena full on slept for like 18 straight hours.
18 hours.
Like didn't move, didn't.
Oh man.
Nothing. Like,
and I'm telling you, I didn't even go potty. Like I didn't wake up once to go pee.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I went 18 hours without singularly moving a
Right.
leg or an arm. And
Right.
what was funny is there was like moments that I kind of like my brain awoke. I didn't open my eyes, but my brain awoke and I remember hearing things like, "Do you think you should check on her? Cuz
Right.
like she hasn't moved." And what was funny, what I remember about it is you're like, "Nah, she's fine."
Right.
Like not even checking if I'm alive. I
Right.
could have had an aneurysm or who knows what. And I've
Yeah.
been dead on your couch for 15 hours and you didn't
Yeah.
even know.
Ben asked you too. He was like, Alex didn't even check on you. I was like, I'm keeping an eye out. Like, I was kind of like watching over, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Oh man, I was so
Yeah.
exhausted. I don't remember there being a time on tour that I was more exhausted than in that moment.
I
I was
bet. Yeah.
super, super tired. Like again, it was one of those moments where I had basically just been pushing and pushing and pushing because I had to get these shows done.
Right.
And I was just hopped
And
up on like rock stars and
right. Like a lot of that you had to drive, you know, like I don't know if people like know how much you had to drive, but you would
yeah.
do 15 to 17-hour drive straight by yourself. Uh,
Yes.
so like your tour schedule was insane. Uh,
Yes. It
but then like
was
you finally had some time and I was like, well, I'm kind of nervous. What happens if I wake her up to check on her?
right. And you're like, why'd you wake me up?
Right.
So mind you, that following from so that was Friday. That following Saturday was the Saturday where our friend tried to freaking get it to the car. And I'm like, who's more messed up here, me or you? Oh man, it was so funny. Yeah, there's just so many good memories of just random stuff like that. What's your favorite like music memory though in general? Like I think if we're talking about traveling,
Okay.
one of my uh favorite, well, I don't want to say favorite, but craziest moment I had is so this is, again, Alex and I are booking all my tours. I think at that point we were kind of half and half. I think like I was still booking half and you were booking half, and
Yeah.
which kind of was double duty. I mean, we ended up with so many shows. We were booking like 125 shows a year. It was
Right.
kind of
Groupers.
crazy.
Yeah.
And at the time my boyfriend and I were long distance, so we never really got to see each other, but every time I went on tour, I would have to drive through Tulsa from Nashville to get to all the places that I was going to play, like Albuquerque, California, whatever. So, when we saw each other, it was always like, oh, we never get to see each other. So it's me constantly like, oh, I know I need to leave, but I don't want to leave yet. And would keep pushing my days back. Well, a lot of times I would get me into trouble because I would have to end up driving things straight, which
Right.
was by myself, which was a nightmare. So one of these times I was playing a show in Tahoe and I was supposed to take like 3 days to get to Tahoe. But of course I push it back and, all for love. And I end up having to drive 25 and a half hours straight by myself, completely by myself. And I'm telling you, I didn't stop unless it was for like gas. And one time I stopped for Panda Express because you know how white people love Panda Express. White people love Panda Express like white people love ketchup. Like it's just we
Not
love
orange
Panda
chicken.
Express. And I was like, look, I'm on that whole drive. You really just only have McDonald's and Taco Bell. So I was like, this is the only time I'm gonna get something other than that. So I was like, I'm gonna stop, and it took like 15 minutes. That was the only time that I really stopped other than gas. So I'm driving straight all the way there, and I'm calling everybody trying to like have them keep me awake, you know what I mean? But there's a time where nobody is awake.
Right.
At like 3 a.m. to like 8 a.m. or 7 a.m. Nobody's awake, nobody, or just doesn't want to be on the phone. Let's just be honest. Who wants
Right.
to be on the
Right.
phone with somebody
Fair.
at 7 a.m. who's also hopped up on energy drinks and God knows what else? So,
Right.
so anyways, I'm driving. It's around like 5:36. The sun is up and I am like straight up delirious. Like I'm having to like blast music, slap myself in the face just to
Right.
keep myself awake. And all of a sudden, I think I see an animal crossing the road and I dodge. I swear to God, I thought I saw a raccoon. I was like, I don't want to hit this raccoon. So I swerve out of the way, like straight up. And I look in my rearview mirror and there is not anything. Not anything, not a bird, not a tumbleweed,
Yeah.
not anything. And I am in the middle of nowhere. It basically looks like House of Wax where I am. So I'm like, there is no way that I'm stopping here because
Right.
somebody's gonna melt my body into wax or staple me in the head. Who
Right.
knows? And I just remember being like, I am never making this long of a drive alone ever again. It was so bad. And like people don't believe me that I drove it straight, but like
Yeah,
Alex can attest, I drove 25 and a half hours completely straight. It was one of the worst things I've ever had to do.
yeah, that one was rough.
So what's your craziest musical memory?
With you?
No, just I mean, it could be with me. Maybe we
Okay.
have another crazy one, but maybe just one in general.
Yeah,
Because obviously, like, I don't think a lot of people know, like, you still are in the music industry, but you
right.
do more marketing stuff now. But you started as like tour managing
Yeah,
and all these different things. So I think it'd be interesting to be like,
yeah,
like again, like a lot of people who follow this are probably like interested in music or, interested in what happens in the industry and just funny memories. And I don't think people realize like how crazy it is
yeah.
sometimes like what we end up going through just
Yeah,
to play a show or just to get someone a guitar or like, you know what I mean? Like there's
yeah,
just stupid things that happen on tour and stupid things that happen in the industry. It's kind of funny.
right. Yeah, so I used to work in tour management. And so one time we were driving, I can't remember where we started from, but we were going to one of the Dakotas. And so like, we would play a show and then our bus would always drive overnight. And so it's, I wake up at like 7 in the morning or something on the bus, and I'd usually look at my phone and like check out the maps and be like, okay, where are we? And it's like 7 a.m. and we're just like somewhere in Nebraska. And so I was like, it doesn't really feel like we're moving. Like, this is kind of weird. So I go out there. Our bus had broke down.
Oh
So we're just
no.
like on the side of the road in Nebraska,
Which
and
happens all the time.
all
Like
the time.
people like don't realize like people
Right.
everybody always wants a tour bus and like people don't realize like they
Mhm.
break down all
Right.
the time. Like I
You can
think I
hear
maybe on tour with my Prius had a flat tire one time. Now,
right.
mind you, it did happen on a Saturday and for some reason in Maryland nothing's open
Nope.
on Sundays. Not one thing is, and I'm being dead serious. They like literally, I'm calling 15 different AAA people, and they're
Right.
like, unfortunately, everything closes at 7 o'clock and nothing's open on Sunday. Like Maryland, I don't know, it's still like religious like that, like it's the Lord's Day
Right.
or whatever.
Yeah.
So, anyways, but sorry, continue. It's just kind of crazy.
Yeah. It's so I go out and I'm talking to Natalie, and is telling me, she's like, yeah, we talked to this like car rental place, but basically like last night there was a hailstorm, so there's like one available car at this place, because like the cars are like, like they don't want to send things out that have been like dented or marked
Right,
up
right.
from hail. So there's one car, and so Natalie's like, I'm getting in this with Matt, the guy that we work for, and basically the band. And she was like, we're driving to South Dakota. She was like, I need you to basically figure out like what to do with the bus and the trailer. Um,
AKA, can you be a mechanic for just like 2 seconds?
Right. Yeah. So I'm like, the bus gets towed. Like, we don't get to keep the bus. The bus is like broken down. So they tow it somewhere. And like the five of us that were left, we have to try and like, first we have to push the trailer off so that like there was enough room so the bus could pull out without
Oh my
breaking the
God.
trailer. Because we were playing a festival the day after the North Dakota show,
Oh
somewhere
God.
in Nebraska. So we had to get the trailer off. And then I'm talking to Kat, who was Matt's manager, and she connects me to someone who's in Nebraska, who connects me to literally this random guy who has a truck who would be able to pull our trailer. So I
Oh my
call
God.
him, and there's like five, like big guys that are left. It's
Yeah.
like Keith and Stribling was one.
Oh God.
And then it's like our guitar tech and two other guys. And so we talked to this guy, and he's like, yeah, I think I can get it there, but my daughter had early release, so like she's also going to be in the car. So he pulls up, and like maybe it was two daughters, and so they sat in the front seat, like one in her lap and then one sitting, and then in
Uh,
the back we put four guys on the like,
oh
of the
God.
truck, and then I literally laid on the ground underneath everyone's feet. Like, that was the only spot where I could fit, and so I was just laying on the ground as we're like driving to somewhere in Nebraska.
No freaking
Finally
way. With
get
someone
there.
you don't know and there are two kids in
No,
the front.
some random guy that, like, we just got connected to because he has a truck. Um,
Oh my
and
God.
so we finally get there, and we're in this like little town in Nebraska, and we're like, well, what are we gonna do? Like, now we have like a day basically, because Matt's
Right.
not gonna be back until tomorrow for the festival. So we go to this movie theater, and I kid you not, the entire town was there. It was like the night out was at the movie theater, and
Right. The Dollar Theater, everybody's there
everyone
Friday
was
night.
there. Like that was where you go. And so we're just like watching this movie, like after we've just, like driven from who knows where. Like we got
Right.
the truck there, we got the thing there. Natalie and
Mile
them,
343.
right? Yep.
Pick me up at
They
mile 343.
they made it and they played the show. Like they literally pulled up in their rental car and like walked on stage. And they were like
Wow.
shifting, like usually like our keys player, he played drums. Like they were like,
Oh
we just
my.
gotta kind of do like what we can do. It is nuts.
Best show ever.
Yeah,
Probably not.
it happened. So at least that's a plus.
That is crazy. I can literally not imagine you being I can imagine you being so pissed that literally everybody's feet is just on you while you're laying on the
I'm
ground.
just like laying there. I was like, well,
Poor dude. You're
this is
like, nobody move in the wrong way
right.
because if I
Yep.
get
Right.
if I get a nut in the
Right.
face, I'm gonna be
Yep.
pissed.
Is like that was the only place to go.
Oh
We're not gonna
man.
fit five guys on this bench.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so a part of the end of the show that I like to do, I've started this thing called Which One is Better? And basically what it is I will present two things and you and I will choose which one we find to be better. And that like yours could be different than mine. But we just talk about which one do we think is better.
Okay.
And one of the fun things about Alex is one of the pickiest eaters I have ever met. And I'm telling you, like, we're talking about picky. I'm like, what about this? And he's like, no, I'd rather just have a burger with fries.
I'll just
so,
start.
so I thought it'd be funny to start with two things that I know you like, which is pizza or burgers.
Okay.
Which one is
Ooh.
better? This one is really hard for me because you basically, I mean, it comes down to the three greatest things like cheese, bread, and meat.
Right.
Like,
See? Like who needs to adventure out when you have
right,
all
that's a
that
bliss
at your
point.
fingers? Yeah. I would say pizza. I'll go pizza.
Really?
I'll go pizza.
I am really shocked. I thought you were
I
for
could
sure gonna say burgers.
I can eat pizza whenever.
Man,
I can also eat burgers whenever, but I love
yeah,
a good pizza.
I love a good burger, especially like a specialty one. I
Yeah.
know you're not into
No.
specialty ones,
Yeah,
but
I don't know
but
where you're going with this, but
yeah,
it's not up
but
my
like
alley.
even like a even like a Tennessee burger, which is like a bar like a burger with barbecue sauce on it, but it has like bacon and like an onion ring and like that.
All
I'm
right.
into.
Yeah.
Or even like for you,
That
you wouldn't like this, but like a jalapeno like stuffed
no.
burger like that. That stuff slaps.
That's the devil's foot.
Especially like when you get like really good fries and some tater tots. Tater
Yep.
tots is
Yep.
what sets it apart for me. But I do agree with you. Like I feel like because I'm Italian, I have to say pizza.
Yeah. You got to
Like
go pizza.
I would be going against uh, my heritage,
Yeah. Right.
at this point.
Right.
Like my grandma Filipina would roll over in her grave if I said burger. So I'm definitely going
um,
pizza. And what's the best pizza you've ever had? I
hmm.
swear to God, if you say something like Domino's, I'm gonna like reach through the screen
You know who has
and slap
good
you.
pizza though?
What?
Bella.
Oh yeah, they're
That
definitely
pizza is
top five
bomb.
best pizzas I've
Yeah.
ever had.
That stuff is so good.
Yes, and
I
they
would maybe
had
say that's mine.
yeah, they had this again. I can't remember if you like this or not. I think it was too spicy for you.
Probably.
But one time I was there. Two DeBellas is that place that we were talking about earlier, where I played a show and they had a view of the Space Needle and for New Year's and stuff. And they would give you like a free meal when you played there. And I was like, cool. So one time I asked the waitress. I played there like 3 years in a row for the New Year's thing. And so I asked the waitress, hey, what's your favorite pizza? And she goes, oh, it's this like angry bees pizza that we make. And it's got like pepperoni and it's a little bit spicy and like whatever. But she goes, but I've modified it with these couple of other things and I add a drizzle of honey and it's amazing. And I was like, that sounds kind of fire. Okay, hit me with that.
Right.
It was one of the best pizzas I've ever had in my entire life. It was so good. It literally hit the bliss points of like spicy, salty, sweet. It was perfect. Have never been able to get that pizza ever again because it's
Right.
her specialty pizza that she made. And I can't. I can't remember. How am I supposed to
Right.
remember a year later what it had? And they tried to remake it the next year, but I'm like, this is not what I remember it to be. The other really good pizza that I've had was there's a place in New Jersey, Rockaway, New Jersey. Okay, it's a small little town in New Jersey. And if you've heard of the Rockaway Mall, then you know where Rockaway is. But there's a place called Anthony's, and they have one of the best pizzas I've ever had, still to this day.
Yeah.
And they've been there like, we're talking like 50 years they've been there. I mean, they've been there a really long time. So anyways, if you're in New Jersey, go to Anthony's. It's amazing.
Side note for food though. Do you remember that gelato place in Vancouver that we went to?
Oh my gosh. You don't know, Lauren.
It,
I have to show Lauren this
yeah,
podcast now because I tell Lauren about this freaking gelato.
I'm not
It,
kidding. It's the best thing ever.
oh, first of all, the taco place that we went to was
That
amazing.
was also bomb. That was
And
so
I was surprised
good.
you even liked, because I was like, I mean,
Yeah.
you did get the most basic taco they
Okay.
had, but still, it
Like
was
fried chicken.
amazing. Right, yeah, it was amazing. Then I don't know if a lot of people don't know this, but I'm like a Yelp Elite member. So I have basically been to so many restaurants and reviewed them that Yelp has now acknowledged me as an elite person on the app. Okay. So every time I would go somewhere on the road, I would look at Yelp, and I got really good at determining what were the best places to eat in that city. Like if you find a place that has like 1,500 or more reviews, and it's like 4.5 stars, like
Right.
that place is gonna be banging, like almost every single time. And so I find this gelato place on Yelp, and what was it called? It was like Bella Gelateria or
Something, yeah.
something like that. And so, anyways, I find this thing. This place has over 4,000 reviews. 4,000. I'm like, this place has to be amazing. Okay. So I'm like, Alex, let's go to this place. And he's like, okay, like whatever. So we go to this place. It is the longest line you've ever seen for a gelato place in your
Right.
life, right? So we're like, okay, well, maybe it'll go quick. Like maybe it's just because it's a small little corner spot and whatever. And so we stand in line 45 minutes.
It was a long
Okay.
time. Yeah.
We were there for 40 minutes or 30. No, it was like 30-ish minutes. And we were like, should we just leave? Like,
Right.
this is a really long time. But the problem is we've been waiting. We were like, well, we've already been waiting 30 minutes. But
Right.
two, every time somebody came out of it, somebody would be like, it's worth the wait. You
Yeah.
gotta wait. It's worth this. So they were like pumping
Right.
you up, and you're like, dang, like 15 people have
Right.
just come out of this place and said it's worth the wait. So,
Yep.
anyways, we get into this place and I'm like, okay, I don't know what I want. So I'm gonna, I'm like a classic taster. Like I definitely want to taste all the flavors before deciding, right? And of course, I don't see that it says like you only get 3 tries. Like, so I am like super pumped to be there, and I'm like, okay, what's your favorite ones? And they say your favorite ones, and I try them, and I'm like, and I've already hit my 3 max. But I'm like, well, what about this one? And like they're being so nice to me. They're like, and mind you, I have no idea that there's like a limit. Not that I'm trying to be annoying. I just really like all of them were amazing. So then I'm
Right.
like, I don't know which one to pick. So then they finally are like, well, we have this berry one that's seasonal that only happens during this season of time because in Canada, the berries are only ripe. And these 3 different kind of berries, right? It was like blackberries, raspberries, whatever. But there was one berry that was like a special kind of like berry, acai. No, I'm just kidding. And so anyways, they're like, you should try this one. I think you'd like this one. When I tell you, the world stopped when I ate this gelato.
Okay.
I mean, it was like a love affair at first sight. It was absolutely the best thing I have ever eaten. So much so that I have literally to this day have dreams about this gelato, and I wake up upset because I realize it's a dream.
Yep.
It is
in Canada. Like,
amazing.
yep.
Vancouver, Canada. And I think it's called Bella Gelateria, but it's
so good.
but literally if you're in Vancouver, if you're in downtown, just go to Yelp and like find the most popular one. And I'm telling you that it's I hope it's still there.
It's gotta be.
I hope like COVID didn't knock it out, because I
Yeah.
would be so upset.
Yeah. It's so good.
Oh man. And I tell Lauren about that place all the time, and she laughs. And I'm like, I'm telling you right now, like if because she's wanting to move to LA. So I was like, oh yeah, I'll drive you down. I
Yeah.
said, but first things
We're
first, we're
going.
getting a pint of that gelato. That is the only thing I ask is that we get a pint of this gelato. That in a cactus.
Yeah, that place, that's what I was gonna
Oh,
say. When those 2 girls, they were like, "Oh, we're going here, like, you guys gotta come." And so we
yeah,
did, and that was
right.
such a good time.
Oh, that was such a
That
good time.
place was
So,
bomb.
yeah, some of the things that happen on tour is like you just meet the most random people and you can kind of tell most of the time like who's cool and who's not. And I don't mean like cool, I mean like who's not going to murder you and who's not kind of thing. And so these girls from Canada, they were at a show. They just stumbled into the bar that I was playing at and they're like, "Oh my god, you're amazing." And I had just finished and they were like, "We're going to this place called Cactus. Have you ever been to Cactus?" And I was like, "No, we haven't been." And they're like, "It's a staple in Canada. You have to go. It's like one of the most popular chain restaurants."
Yeah.
So I was like, "Okay, well, look, you don't need to tell me to eat.
Right.
Like, like, that's the fact." So, anyways, I tell Alex and Alex had met them when they were super nice. So we
Yeah.
end up meeting them there. Cactus is amazing. It is
So
such a and it's a chain, so you would
right,
think that it's like, "Eh." No, it is so
right.
good. We had short ribs,
Yep.
amazing. Peach Bellini, amazing. Do you remember that peach Bellini? Oh my god. It was
Yeah,
so
we
freaking
were
good.
cruising through their menu.
Oh, man. We were cruising through the food in
Yeah.
Canada for sure. Oh god, it
Yep.
was so good. I
You
literally have eaten some of the best food in my life in Canada, which is crazy.
Do you remember those 2 girls that we met who then one of them came and played a show? Do you remember
Yes.
that?
Yes.
And then she was, like, going to, like, the, like, Peace
She
Corps
was Peace
maybe?
Corps.
Yeah,
Peace
Peace Corps.
Corps. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, yeah.
They were so great.
They were she was so talented.
Yeah.
And so
Susanna.
I what?
Susanna.
Susanna, yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, I played a little pop-up like singer-songwriter night thing in Seattle and right after I played, I think it was like 2 people after me, this girl
Yeah.
Susanna plays, and she says something about going to Vancouver after this. So she plays her song and I'm like, "Who the frick is
Yeah.
this?" Like this
So
girl
good.
is amazing. She had this folk pop kind of cool thing going on, singer-songwriter thing going on. And her melodies and her word choices were just so unbelievably clever. So I just went up to her and kind of like gushed over her and then said, "Hey, I'm playing a show in Vancouver in 2 days, would you want to join? I'll
Yeah.
totally let you play like 3 or 4 songs if you swing by." And she goes, "Oh my god, that would be awesome." So, anyways, we end up kicking it with her. So nice. And I'm like, "So what are you
Yeah.
doing with this? Because you're one of the most talented peoples I've like peoples people I've ever met." And she goes, "Actually, I'm in 2 weeks going into the Peace Corps for
Yeah.
2 years." And I
She's
was
going to,
like,
like, Ecuador, I think.
"Yeah." And I was like, I mean, like that's like really nice and like you're being a good human, but also like this talent of yours is
Right.
like undeniable and you have to do something with it. And she actually is one of the people that really influenced my songwriting.
Mm.
I don't know if you knew this, but we were talking about songwriting and I was like, "How do you like the way she picked certain words, they didn't necessarily rhyme, but they were the right word."
Right.
And but the way she fit the melody into it was just like it felt right. Everything felt
Totally.
right about it even though you were like typically you would want that word to rhyme.
Yeah.
And so she told me she's like, "Well, I take like a very Bob Dylan approach to
Totally.
where I first figure out what I want to say and then I fit the melody around what I want to say." And it was such a different, especially at that time in my writing career, such a different way of thinking about writing. It
Right.
really changed a lot of things for me, or
Yeah.
a lot of things for me.
Her EP still pops up on my phone sometimes when I'm shuffling through music, and it's
Yeah.
just so good.
Ugh.
Uh,
What was her last name? Do we know her last name?
I can find it. You should tag the EP.
Yeah, when you find her
Yeah.
if you can find her like handle or whatever, I'll tag her in this right now because she's truly amazing. And we haven't spoken in like forever.
Right.
Honestly,
This has been
since
Vancouver.
Canada.
Yeah, I talked to
Yeah.
her a couple times about booking some shows in Dallas because she was from Texas.
Oh, okay.
But that was pretty much it.
Yeah.
Um, so I'll find it and I'll send it to you.
Cool. Yeah, I'll definitely add her because she is
Great.
a present
Yeah.
is amazing.
Yeah.
I haven't heard her recent stuff, but honestly, she's so talented. And at this point, she should be out of the Peace Corps unless
Yeah.
she's
She's got to be
signed
back.
up. Yeah, she's got to
Yeah.
be back. Hopefully, my God, please
Right.
do something with music because you're
Right.
amazing.
Thing. Right.
But yeah, okay. Well, actually, okay. So this will be the last one then because we
All
just
right.
led into music.
All
Okay,
right.
so which one is better, country music or pop music?
Ooh, this is just rude to ask this.
Yeah, I know.
It's the disrespect that I put up with. I don't know. I
This
got
one's
like my.
really hard for you. This
This
one's
is hard
really,
for
really
me.
hard for you. I don't think
This
it's
is
as
hard.
hard for me because in my blood is pop.
Right.
I love country music.
Right.
Nothing against country music. I actually have been writing a ton of country recently,
Totally.
for an artist that you guys would not expect. But and I love country. I think country is so clever, and Nashville's like, obviously I lived in Nashville for 3
Yep.
years. Love the writing style in Nashville. It's honestly why I write the way I write today.
Right.
Um, but pop is just in my blood. And when I think back to the songs that like just changed and rocked my world, it was like Katy Perry Teenage Dream. I'm like, holy
Right.
crap, that album is like, what in the world?
Right.
So everybody already knows what mine's gonna be, but what is yours gonna be? Because for you, you grew up kind of
I
country,
did.
kind of country.
I grew up in a small little town in Ferndale.
It's the
You know,
Southern Belle you are.
like our barn and our house would have speakers, and like my dad
Yeah.
would play, Garth Brooks and Kenny Chesney.
Yeah.
My mom would play like Faith Hill, Martina McBride.
Mhm.
But I
Shania
think
Twain. Shania Twain's a
I
big
played
influence.
lots of Shania Twain.
I
My mom
freaking love
loved
Shania
her.
Twain.
I mean, my mom also was like, she'd always be like, "I love hard rock," and I'm like, "Do you
Ooh.
know?" Like, I don't really know about that,
So
but
sweet. I can't imagine her listening to hard rock.
she's always like, "I'm a rocker," and I was like, "Okay."
I'm a rocker. You're like,
I
she's
was
like,
like,
you didn't know me
yeah,
in my early days. You're like, all right, mom, I don't want to know
oh,
you from your early
trust
days.
me, she has tried. But I don't know. I feel like in my like adult life, right, pop music has been more influential. Between like working with you and then when I spent time at Warner, the majority of the artists kind of there that I would focus on were mostly pop. Like Dua Lipa when she was kind of getting developed there,
Oh,
and Phoebe Rexa, and
yep.
kind of going through that process of being able to help a little bit on like that kind of setup. I would say that
Yeah.
pop music has been more influential.
Yeah.
I still love country music. My phone and my music is filled with it. But I think in
Right.
terms of especially from like a stepping out of music a little bit, but like a creative approach
Yeah.
from a marketing standpoint.
Hmm.
Again, nothing against country. There is so much room that you can do to be creative. I
Right.
just
But how many times can you take a photo in front of a barn with a
think
horse and a
right.
truck? It's
I
the
just
same
think
thing
that
over and over again.
more of like my creative outlet has been geared towards pop, like
Yeah.
working on like album covers for you, or if we're doing
Yeah.
marketing stuff. I just think that more of it has been pop centric, which has
Sure.
probably been more impactful for me. But
Sure.
I do love some country music.
Yeah, I mean, again, I love country music. Like
Yeah.
country, I mean, Carrie Underwood was like a big influence of mine as well.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about like my vocal style and like belting and all of that stuff. It was so
Right.
big back then. But I have to agree with you. Like pop is just in my blood.
Right.
And it's just when I think about all the times in my life that music just like, oh, like this is why I want to do this.
Right.
It was always like a pop song. It was
Right.
always like even Dua Lipa, Dua
Did
Li Dua
you see that
Lipa's
video?
yeah, even
Cute
Dua
feet.
Lipa is like a good example. Like her first like album that came out was just
Oh,
crazy. And I know she had an EP and stuff before that, but her album that came out was like, whoa, who is this? And it didn't even pop off right away. That's what was so confusing
yeah.
about that album. It was like it popped off like 9 months later. I was so confused. Same thing with Tovlo. Like
Yeah.
Tovlo's EP
Totally.
album
Yep. So
blew
good.
my mind.
Yeah.
Completely blew
So
my
good.
mind. So I'm definitely right there with you. Well, all
Country.
right. That is Living Like a G with your girl G. Alex, thank you so much for coming on. I've said this
Ah,
to you so many times, but literally I would not be where I am today without you. You have single-handedly got me to where I am in my career, and literally single-handedly because he's the only one that has to deal with all of this all the time and graciously deals with me all the time. But thank you so much for coming on here and taking even more time out of your life for me.
of
I
course.
really appreciate it. And all the things.
Yeah.
All right, guys, that is Living Like a G. If you liked this video, please share it, subscribe, click the little thumbs up button, and we will see you next week. Peace.